I never believed a child could fix a broken engine, but what happened next left me in shock. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. I was standing in my driveway, heart pounding, sweat trickling down my back. The old, rusted car had let me down again. It sat there lifeless. The engine sputtered, coughed, and then fell into silence. I kicked the tire in frustration, my pulse racing. I had no idea what to do. But then, out of nowhere, my little sister Mia appeared. She couldn't be more than 8, with her wild curls bouncing as she skipped into view, a mischievous grin plastered on her face. "Let me try," she squealed, hands trembling with excitement. I laughed, but the sound was hollow. What did she know about engines? I felt a wave of embarrassment wash over me. "Mom loved that car. It was the family heirloom," she said. I could hear her voice echoing in my mind, the way she always spoke about it with a hint of reverence. Dad had promised to fix it, but every time he picked up a wrench, he ended up sitting in silence, lost in thought. I often wondered if he was fixing the car or mending his own broken parts. But there was Mia, her tiny hands reaching out, her eyes wide with determination. She wasn't afraid. The world just looked so different through her lens, as though jumbled puzzles always had a solution waiting to unfold. The neighbors gathered around, whispering, eyes wide, half amused, half judgmental. "What does she think she's doing?" I could hear them muttering, but the sound blurred into a haze. My heart raced. This was a mix of pride and terror. Mia knelt beside the engine, peering inside with scrunched brows. Her fingers grazed the metal, small and delicate. Suddenly, she pulled out a shiny tool I had never seen before. "I just know it'll work," she chirped, undeterred by the skepticism swirling around her like shadowy clouds. I stood frozen, my thoughts tangled. Was this a game? A foolish hope? Could a child really make a miracle happen with mere imagination and the heart of a dreamer? My hands trembled, heart skipping. There was something mystical happening. Then, as if time caught its breath, a loud crack echoed through the air. A firework of sound erupted from the car, flames licking out from beneath the hood. I screamed, "Mia, get back!" The crowd gasped. My breath quickened. I was torn between jumping in to protect her and watching in awe as she stood her ground, eyes sparkling with an unknown power. The smell of smoke wafted through the air, thick and acrid. Whispers turned into gasps. All I could do was stare, wide-eyed, my heart thundering in my chest. There was something uncanny happening. Was she a child or a force of nature? And just like that, just before I could leap forward, everything paused. The engine groaned to life. Shocked gasps from the crowd filled the air, but I didn't know if I was relieved or terrified. Mia grinned ear to ear, the engine sputtering like a creature gaining consciousness. But what did that mean for me? For our family? What had awakened inside her? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The engine was alive, humming a discordant melody that danced through the air, competing with the racing pulse of my heartbeat. The crowd erupted in disbelief, a cacophony of approval and disbelief. Muffled cheers filled the driveway, yet it felt surreal, as if I were standing in some insane illusion. The flames had vanished, but a searing tension gripped my heart. What had really just happened? Mia bounced back from the engine as it coughed and sputtered to life, her laughter ringing through my soul like a bomb. "See, I told you," she shouted, looking up at me with sparkling eyes brimming with triumph. But beneath that innocent joy, a deep-rooted fear began to creep through me. What kind of power had she tapped into? As the noise of admiration began to fade, my mind spiraled into worry. Was this one miracle masking a deeper issue? I worried about Mia carrying the weight of expectations, about the secrets and unspoken words swirling within our family, and about the engine being just a reflection of the chaos inside our lives. "Good job, kiddo," one of the neighbors called, a hint of incredulity mingling with enthusiasm. It struck me how quickly people turned their skepticism into praise. Perhaps they all wanted a glimpse of something extraordinary, something that could make sense of the cracks forming around us. I knelt beside Mia, putting a hand on her shoulder. "How did you know to do that?" I asked, searching her wide eyes for answers. In her world, everything seemed so simple. I just felt it, she said, her voice gentle, almost ethereal. My heart danced to an unfamiliar rhythm, every beat echoing doubts and wonder. Suddenly, Dad stepped out of the front door, his expression a blend of confusion and awe. "What's all this noise?" he asked, shaking off a haze as he rubbed his tired eyes, the baggy shadows telling stories of sleepless nights. The former air of mystery surrounding him shifted, revealing something raw vulnerability that mirrored my own. Mia beamed. "Dad, look. I fixed the car." His expression faltered for a moment, a flicker of hope mixed with something darker that I couldn't identify. I caught the way his hand lingered on the doorway, as if he were testing the safety of stepping out. "You did?" he asked, surprise sprinkling through his voice, but instead of rushing to her side, he took a step back. It was as though he was afraid an unseen force might unravel the carefully constructed facade we called life. With a deep, shuddering breath, I stepped into the uncomfortable silence, battling the urge to shield Mia from the morning sun that seemed all too bright. "She just made it run, Dad," I said, trying to bridge the gap, trying to invite him into this newfound light. Maybe it could mean something more, but to my dismay, Dad's eyes darted toward the ground, his shoulders tightening like a clenched fist. "You shouldn't play with things you don't understand," he muttered, the dismissal stabbing at the joy hanging in the air. I felt MIA's excitement wane, small shoulders slumping. Then, in a moment of clarity, I hid my frustration and cupped MIA's cheek, this beautiful, innocent creature who dared to hope. "You did great," I exclaimed, leaning down to whisper conspiratorially. "Sometimes people forget that little hands can change big things." Mia smiled, bringing warmth back into our makeshift family. Dad turned abruptly, his face a mask of anguish. "I need to go see your mother," he said, as though she were a comforting ghost instead of a distant reality. Confusion gnawed at my heart as he hurried back inside, closing the door with a soft yet heavy thud. "What's wrong with Dad?" Mia asked softly, the question hanging in the air. Her innocence had been marred, and it made my insides twist. "I don't know, honey," I replied, glancing back at the closed door, a knot forming deep in my gut. In that moment, despair clawed at my heart as I saw shadows flare and dim within our lives. Suddenly, my phone buzzed violently in my pocket, jolting me away from my thoughts. Glancing at the screen, my breath caught. The name shining back at me sent chills down my spine. Uncle Benny. I swallowed hard. He had disappeared years ago, leaving behind more questions than answers. He had always been the one who believed in the magic of dreams, the keeper of hope in our broken family. But what could he possibly want now? As I stared at the phone, heartsick, every facet of my world seemed ready to spiral into chaos. Did MIA's miracle only open the door for chaos instead of healing? And why did it feel like the engine had just scratched the surface of deeper troubles waiting to unfold? The engine's hum was still echoing in my ears when I reluctantly swiped the screen to accept the call. The two words I had dreaded emerged with an unsettling familiarity. "Hello, Nina." The warm baritone of Uncle Benny washed over me. Yet there was an edge to Ida's sharpness embedded in the kindness I had once cherished. "Uncle Benny," I managed to say, my voice breaking under the weight of unshed emotions. "It's been a long time. I know," he said softly, the resonance of nostalgia tinged with pain. "I've been keeping my distance, but I had to reach out. There's something urgent we need to discuss." The casual air he typically carried felt distant, giving way to a gravity that penetrated right through to my soul. "Urgent?" My breath hitched involuntarily, dread creeping in around me like fog. The tinkling laughter of Mia faded into an echo, leaving an oppressive silence hanging in the space between us. My heart raced as I glanced at the door through which Dad had just exited, a force of nature roaming yet again. "Yes," he continued, hesitating as if weighing his words. "I found something related to your mom. It's complicated, and I can't say much over the phone." My gut twisted at those words. Complicated was an understatement, a mere brushstroke across the chaotic canvas of our family's reality. Mom had been gone lost in a web of her own, making yet the appalling weight of her absence remain palpable in our lives. "What do you mean related to her?" Uncle Benny took a sharp breath that resonated like a heartbeat before he plunged forward. "I have reason to believe she's been looking for you and Mia." The world stood still, time caught in a suspended motion. "That doesn't make sense," I snapped, the flame of anger flaring in my chest before fear snuffed it out. "She chose to leave. Listen to me carefully. I'm not telling you this to stir any hope. I'm telling you because it's time to face the truth about why she went. I think she believes well that this might be her last chance. A choked sob clawed its way up my throat. How could he say such things? The ghost of Mom haunted our every moment, twisting the remnants of our family into something barely recognizable. How do you know she's looking for us? There was a pause, a heaviness that whispered of dark secrets and pain I wasn't prepared to unveil. I found some old documents. There are connections she had, partners she spoke of. They'll show you when we meet. Meet? Even the word sounded foreign, wrapped in an urgency that sent chills down my spine. Where? Tomorrow, at the old diner on 3rd Street. They'll wait for you. Just be careful, there are others who might be searching too, he warned, the gravity of his voice pulling me deeper into a whirlpool swirling with dread and incredulity. A fundamental truth flickered in my mind. Engaging with this world of lost promises might bring chaos beyond comprehension. That I need time to think, I whispered, feeling the fragile threads of my life threatening to snap. Just think about it, Nina. For Mia, he trailed off, leaving those words hanging like a bittersweet spell. The line went dead, and I stood alone in the driveway as the realization crashed over me. His news wasn't merely another layer of darkness. It was a return of the warnings I had tried to bury, a call to action shrouded in uncertainty. Mia needed stability, not the chaotic unraveling of truths best left unexamined. But how could I keep her safe while grappling with all this? Suddenly, MIA's delightful voice cut through the grasping shadows. Can we go for ice cream, please? Her beaming face illuminated the lingering darkness of the moment. I forced a smile, fighting against the tempest inside. Of course, kiddo, I said, my heart aching for this child with hopes so grand they felt weightless against the burden of our reality. But as we walked towards the car, I caught a glimpse of Dad through the window, his head in his hands. In that moment of unexpected kindness from Mia, reality seemed to warp, leaving me torn between the innocence in her eyes and the secrets bound by blood. The familiar streets blurred past, I wrestled with uncertainty while attempting to distract myself from the pangs of anxiety stirring inside. In the midst of all this chaos, a flicker of kindness waved at USA neighbor who had once refused to acknowledge our existence waved happily, a gesture that felt like a glimmer of light in an ever-consuming gloom. But as I responded with a wave, a sudden crash thundered in the distance. A commotion filled the air, and as we rounded the corner, a car sped away, doors flung open, a scene of confusion unfolding. Hearts racing, we both turned wide-eyed. On the asphalt, amidst the swirling dust, lay a briefcase, a familiar insignia on its surface. Suddenly, I was plunged into darkness, a gripping feeling that this was only the beginning of a whirlwind set to unravel everything I had fought to stabilize. What was the connection? Or was this a mere collision of forces too powerful to ignore? As I looked into Mia's expectant eyes, her innocence colliding with the chaos around us, I felt the ground shifting beneath my feet. We were teetering on the edge of an abyss, and I had to decide, should I leap into the fray or pull her back to safety? The engine's power echoed in my mind, an unsettling reminder of the complicated dance that had begun. The sweet scent of ice cream mixed with the earthy warmth of the late afternoon sun lingered around us as we wandered the small park where Mia insisted we sit. She had chosen rainbow sprinkles for her scoop, always the optimist, ever hopeful. I watched her, this little beacon of light, my heart swelling yet aching at the same time. I licked my own cone. The bitterness of Uncle Benny's call lingered like an unwelcome guest in my thoughts. How did my mother's name slip from nostalgia into this tangled web of urgency? How could a past I had buried with such fervor claw its way into our present? I looked at Mia, her eyes alight with innocent joy, and felt the suffocating weight of the secret swimming just beneath the surface of our lives. Can I tell you a secret, Nina? She asked, her voice a melodious whisper that drew me closer, as if keeping a precious treasure meant only for me. Of course, kiddo, I replied, more focused on her than my swirling thoughts. I think if we just keep being brave, everything will be okay. Like in those fairy tales. Her eyes sparkled with the belief that perhaps the world still held magic even amidst the chaos that lay ahead. Her words struck a chord deep within me, momentarily distracting me from the puzzle and the promise of impending confrontation. As the sun began to set, casting an amber glow across the park, I couldn't help but wish for that naive magic, even just for a moment. Yet, a darkness loomed in the backdrop, half-formed faces of the past haunting my thoughts as expressions that mirrored pain twisted within me, that I forced myself to smile, to nod. Yes, Mia. Well, be brave. But the words hung in the air like paper lanterns at a stormy night, beautiful yet fragile, susceptible to shattering. As we finished our ice cream, I noticed how the light began to soften, wrapping everything in a subdued warmth that felt oddly comforting. A nearby couple laughed, their joy infectious, and for a moment, I allowed myself to lean into the laughter, to draw from their happiness. But life, with all its intricate designs, had other plans. The laughter was abruptly interrupted by a shattering sound piercing the tranquility. My heart sank as I turned toward the Sauersee nearby bench where two teenagers were arguing fiercely, one trembling with rage, the other holding a cell phone, a dark expression etched across her face. The tension suffocated the joyful atmosphere, and I felt a creeping sense of dread wash over me once more. Mia, let's go, I murmured, but she was already mesmerized by the unfolding drama, her little fingers grasping tightly onto my sleeve. Please, just a little longer? She begged, her voice barely above a whisper. I hesitated, but I could see the spark of excitement in her eyes. It was an innocent curiosity, not yet jaded by the oftentimes cruel realities that shadowed life. My breath caught, but I nodded, deciding to stay momentarily. Suddenly, the girl with the cell phone yelled something I couldn't quite catch, her voice cracking in distress. The boy yelled back, words flaring like firecrackers in the languid air. And then, she turned and threw the phone against the ground. It shattered with a cruel finality that sent a jolt through me. As this rage rooted in something deeper, something I could relate to? Mia's grip tightened, and she tugged at me, her eyes wide. It's just like the stories, isn't it? People fighting, not quite the same, sweetheart, I said gently, as I brought her closer. Sometimes people fight because they don't know how to express their feelings. Or because they're scared. Before I could finish, the girl began to cry, her shoulders shaking, and I felt a pang of empathy. In that moment, I was reminded of my own storm brewing beneath the surface, the pain I didn't know how to address. Emotion welled up like a tidal wave, threatening to wash away the careful facade I'd built for both Mia and me. Then, out of nowhere, a woman from the crowd stepped forward, a stranger adorned with an aura of warmth and kindness. She approached the broken girl softly, speaking in comforting tones. Her small act seemed to resonate like a ripple across a pond, dismantling the walls between anger and understanding. With each passing second, my heart swelled with a mix of hope and longing. How could I be that figure for my sister? A lighthouse guiding her safely away from the rocks. But then my mind spiraled back to the briefcase, the secrets shrouded in obscurity. Was I equipped to be a pillar for Mia when I too felt so adrift? As the argument began to dissolve into forgiveness, Mia finally pulled my attention back, her face lighting up as she whispered, "See? Kindness can fix anything. But what could kindness do when faced with the fractures of our own family? Was it enough to shield us from the approaching storm?" My heart raced as I felt the walls start to close in again. Just then, I received a message on my phone. Uncle Benny, a stark reminder of the turmoil that awaited if I chose to face it. I hesitated, an ominous shadow looming over the moment. Should I show Mia my phone? Should I open the door to the truth that lingered just beyond our grasp? I took a breath, heavy with the weight of uncertainty. "Nina, what's wrong?" Her innocent query tethered me to the present, and as I looked into those trusting eyes, I felt pain churn within a tempest of love and uncertainty. But before I could respond, my phone buzzed again, and as I glanced down, a stark message illuminated the screen. "We're closer than you think." The world around me tilted dramatically, and the laughter that once surrounded us became muffled echoes trailing behind as I processed the unsettling revelation. What forces were closing in on us, and who had the power to pull the strings from the shadows? My heart thumped wildly in my chest, and I was paralyzed between the fragile light of my sister's presence and the threatening darkness looming closer. Dread gelled into intensity, a air crackled with foreboding, and I understood in that moment. The past was not done with me yet. The park's vibrant colors began to blur as dusk descended, shadows lengthening, and the air thickening with an impending chill. I felt trapped between two worlds, the warmth of innocence at my side and the bitter cold of reality breathing down my neck. As laughter faded, replaced by my racing thoughts, the weight of the message loomed heavily in my mind. "Mia," I said, forcing a smile, "let's think about ice cream for dinner. What do you think?" Her eyes sparkled at the mention of ice cream, a flicker of purity that momentarily eased the tight knot in my chest. But as I stood, taking her hand, I felt the weight of the phone in my pocket, its buzzing an anxious reminder of the chaos waiting on the other side of our sanctuary. As we walked away from the scene, Mia chattered on about flavors and toppings, serenading my ears with delightful imaginings that were a lifeline to the woman I longed to be, carefree and innocent. But I remained tethered to the fraying ropes of my own tightening reality. The darkness whispered rumors of secrets and lies as they closed in. I couldn't shake the feeling that the peace we were forging would be shattered at any moment. "Do you think we could get sprinkles on both scoops?" she asked, her tone filled with hope. "Of course. 2 scoops with extra sprinkles," I affirmed, wishing I could believe words that felt as fragile as the ice cream cone I held. The ice cream shop was dimly lit, buzzing with laughter and chatter. The familiar backdrop, once a comfort, now seemed to ensconce another world entirely. As we stood in line, I caught sight of a mother with her toddler seated at a corner table. Their laughter rang out, reminding me of simple joys before everything spiraled into confusion. But then my gaze caught the side of an older man across the room, an unkempt figure in a worn-out jacket, his eyes lost and distant. He glanced up, and for a fleeting moment, our eyes met. The weight of unspoken stories hung thick in the air between us, and I quickly looked away, as if nudging the connection aside would make him disappear. Mia tugged at my sleeve, pulling my focus back to her. "Nina, look." She pointed at the colorfully chaotic menu behind the counter. "Can we get the rainbow explosion?" I nodded, but my heart remained trapped in that connection I could not bear to analyze. It gnawed at the edges of my thoughts, whispering warnings about the encroaching storm I was unwilling to face. Would today's moments of light come back around to haunt me later, reminding me of what I would inevitably lose? After we ordered, I found a seat near the window, pushing down my unease as best I could. Mia continued to chatter about the sprinkles, but her little voice began to fade into the background, replaced by the coil of dread tightening in my chest. As anxiety loomed, the shadows of memory resurfaced: Uncle Benny's rigid face, the sound of his ultimatum echoing eerily in my mind, and the promise I had made to protect Mia. "Hey, what's wrong?" Mia's voice broke through my haze, concern etched on her small face. "Are you okay?" I forced a smile, hiding the quiver in my heart. "Just thinking about sprinkles," I lied, but her trusting gaze searched mine for truth. I felt a ripple of guilt pierce through me. "Nina, do you think magic can really happen?" she asked, her curiosity cutting through the heaviness with a sincerity that left me breathless. "Sometimes, I think it takes more than magic. It takes belief." The weight of those words felt heavy. Somehow, they felt like a promise ID made to both her and myself. But just as I began to steady myself, my phone buzzed again, demanding attention. I pulled it from my pocket, blood running cold when I saw the name attached to the new message: Benny's number. My heart raced and hands trembled under the weight of unfinished business that clawed at the edges of my mind. "Maybe I should just check this quickly," I murmured. Mia's brow furrowed, sensing my retreat, and she reached over the table, laying her hand on mine. "You can tell me anything, you know that, right?" The lump in my throat grew as I decided to ignore the message for just a minute longer, reminded of the kindness shared earlier and how I needed to embody that warmth. But moments later, the clattering of the ice cream shop door swung open, ushering in the crisp night air along with a hurried figure, someone I recognized instantly. My heart sank like a stone. Mia's small voice broke through again. "Nina? Who is that?" "Stay here," I barely whispered, my instincts pulling me upright. I shot a hasty glance to the exit where Uncle Benny stood, face taut with determination that sent ice-cold dread through my veins. "Benny," I breathed, anxiety clawing its way back as he approached, the turmoil of our past, and the looming confrontation jarring reality back into focus. As he stepped toward our table, a flicker of something in his eyes revealed that he was not just here to confront me. He brought with him revelations long buried beneath layers of fear, truths that could potentially shatter the fragile world I had cultivated around Mia. A dark silence enveloped the room as I braced myself, heart racing, knowing we had both been summoned into the depths of our family's tumultuous history. And as I looked down at Mia, her innocent smile suddenly felt like a fragile flame perched on the edge of the wind, ready to be extinguished. Uncle Benny was here, and with him lurked secrets that wanted to spill out, filling the empty spaces in our lives with a darkness I wasn't ready to face. "Nina, We need to talk. It's urgent, he said, voice low, the weight of his words settling between us like a heavy fog, suffocating the remnants of joy lingering in the shop. As he spoke, I felt the warmth of Mia's hand, but the chill of dread settled in my bones. The broken pieces of what I thought I knew were beginning to shift dangerously. Just like that, the world spun back on its axis, and I realized that our fight for hope, for kindness, was merely a prelude to the storm that was about to engulf us all. As Benny leaned against the edge of our table, the atmosphere thickened, every laugh and clink of ice cream scoops fading into an eerie silence. I could hear Mia's breathing, steady and innocent, yet it felt like a discordant note in the chaos about to unfold. My heart pounded, a staccato rhythm drumming against the walls of my chest, urging me to protect her from whatever truths Benny carried. Benny, can't this wait? I managed, my voice trembling slightly. The sweet sugar-coated atmosphere had soured, and I could see shadows painting my brother's face. No, it can't. His eyes darted around, searching for a sign of exposure, as if the walls might collapse before he revealed what was brewing in the dark spaces of our lives. There are things you don't know, Nina. Important things. Mia continued to nibble at her rainbow explosion, unaware of the storm threatening to wash over our moment. Auntie, is everything okay? She asked, pulling at the sleeve of my jacket, her eyes darting between Benny's rigid form and my increasingly strained expression. Everything is fine, sweetheart, I replied, mustering a semblance of calm. My mind was a battlefield, torn between shielding her from the consequences of our family's past and confronting the raw reality that had always lurked in the shadows. There's no easy way to say this, but Benny glanced around the shop, biting his lip as if there were words woven into them that refused to spill forth. We're in trouble. The kind of trouble that can affect everything. The weight of his words hung in the air and my heart raced. What do you mean, trouble? The dread pooled in my stomach, unsettling thoughts wrapping tighter around me like a noose. The bank's on our back. If we don't figure out a way to settle the debts soon, he trailed off, the threat hanging unspoken, yet palpable like a thick fog. For a moment, the ice cream and the laughter around us felt so absurdly incompatible with the reality Trevor had just unveiled. What debts? Why didn't you tell me? I thought it'd be better to keep you out of it, he interrupted, and I could hear the layers of guilt tangled in his tone. But the truth is, all eyes are on you now. People are starting to wonder about Mia. Understanding crashed over me like a tidal wave, and I fought to keep my breathing steady. I couldn't let Mia hear this. I had survived so much to shield her from our family's twisted history. They'll take her away if they find out, I whispered, the sharp edge of panic slicing through me. You know that, Benny. He shifted uncomfortably, glancing back at Mia, and for a fleeting moment, the world seemed to align into clarity. If they find out about the past, yes. But it's not just the debts. It's the reasons behind them. You don't know half of what they think, and they won't hold back this time. Not when it concerns a child. As I stared into his eyes, I finally saw the flicker of fear that mirrored my own, igniting a surge of rage. You should have trusted me, I said fiercely, my voice low yet brittle. Those words came through clenched teeth and filled with the bitterness that has brewed for years. You've made this worse by keeping me in the dark. I was trying to protect you, he replied, but there was no comfort in his voice, just a resonance of anger and regret. Mia, sensing the tidal waves of turmoil swirling around us, reached for my hand. Her little warmth steadied my racing thoughts, acting like a tether to the woman I hoped to be, shielded from the cruelty of our reality. What's happening? She asked quietly, brows knitted slightly. Just grown-up stuff, I brushed off, my heart sinking at the fib. The innocent sparkle in her eyes pulled hard at the guilt festered in my ribs, knowing I was letting her down by not telling the full truth. Benny took a breath, as if gathering the last threads of his resolve. Look, we can figure this out together. He'll do whatever it takes. Just promise me. Don't let Mia get caught in the middle. But how could I promise that? The weight of the unforeseen consequences felt like chains wrapped around my heart, threatening to pull me under. I could see Mia, effortlessly joy-filled despite the tempest raging just beneath the surface, while I could barely float amid the crushing waters pushing against me. Suddenly, the door swung open with a bang, startling everyone in the shop. A stranger, tall and hurried, rushed in, dripping with urgency. As they crossed the threshold, I instinctively shielded Mia again, the whole world narrowing down to the small girl in front of me. Excuse me, the newcomer called out, their voice echoing with distress. Is there a Nina here? I need to speak to Nina. My heart skipped. That voice carried an unfathomable weight, a familiar note that crackled like an electric jolt through my spine. I met Benny's eyes, uncertainty flickering in them. I don't know you, I managed to say, dread blooming within. The stranger stepped closer, a frantic energy radiating off of them. It's about your father. You need to hear this. It's urgent. Every punishing beat of my heart felt like a countdown to an inevitable detonation. The room spun, muffled voices fading as my gaze locked onto the intruder. My father had been gone for years. It was a loss I was certain I had buried deep within. The distant echoes of childhood memories were rising up, framing a horrific picture that I was not ready to decipher. Get away from us, I shouted, instinctively pulling Mia closer, my protective instincts ignited. But the stranger's eyes bore a weight I could barely comprehend, and deep down, I felt a sickening churn of hope and fear intertwining. What could they possibly reveal that might change the course of our already fractured lives? The storm was crashing down, and secrets, far from buried, were beginning to unfurl with a vengeance. I could only brace myself for the tumultuous tide sweeping toward us, me heart pounding for Mia, my family, and the tangled web of truths that awaited to shake our fragile world beyond repair. Benny reached for me, his hand trembling as he tried to bridge the chasm of anxiety that had opened between us. But I was lost in the moment, my attention already consumed by the stranger standing just a few feet away. The weight of my past loomed like a storm cloud, threatening to unleash torrents of revelation that I was terrified to face. Who are you? I demanded, my voice steely yet thin, the protective barrier between myself and this unknown risk slipping dangerously. What do you want? The stranger paused, their eyes flickering from me to Mia, who was now squeezing my hand tightly. It was all happening too fast, the excitement of the ice cream parlor lost to the heavy tension that filled the room. I promise, I'm not here to hurt you. You need to know what's going on. You deserve the truth about your father. Enough. I barked, the ferocity in my tone shocking even myself. You don't know anything about us. I know more than you realize. They took a cautious step forward, and I felt Benny tensing beside me, ready to intervene if needed. Your father is still alive. He needs your help. The words hit me like a cold slap, each syllable laden with disbelief. Alive? No. You're mistaken. Please, just listen. The urgency in their voice struck a nerve, a sliver of reason penetrating the chaos in my mind. He didn't choose to leave you. He was taken from you. There's so much at stake, and he's in trouble. You have to believe me. Mia looked up at me, her innocent eyes searching for reassurance. I swallowed hard, trying to digest the reality crashing into my established world. My father had been a ghost, a specter haunting my childhood memories, one I had convinced myself was safely buried in the past. The mere thought of him re-emerging alive and in trouble sent my heart into a frenzy. Why should I trust you? What proof do you have? I countered, crossing my arms as if to shield myself from further pain or disappointment. The stranger hesitated, their expression shifting to one of desperation. There are people who want him dead, but if you act fast, you can save him and yourself. A rush of emotions flooded through my confusion, anger, and a flicker of hope rolled back and forth like waves against the shore. You're asking me to believe in something I thought I had lost forever. I survived by letting go of the pain. Benny's voice dipped low as he warned, Nina, we don't know who this person is or what they want. They could be dangerous, but what if they're telling the truth? I whispered, more to myself than anyone else. The conflict collided within me. The possible reality of my father still alive was a bombshell that uprooted the ground beneath my feet. What would you do? If he were alive, if you could reach him, would you turn your back? The stranger's words dug deep into my mind, probing the fissures of reluctance I had carefully sealed. My entire life had revolved around protecting Mia, forming a bulwark against our dark history. But now, the possibility of reconnecting with my father was pulling me in two different, opposing directions. All I can tell you is that time is running out. He won't be able to hold on forever, and there's a debt that needs settling. The stranger's expression was that of aching honesty, as if they carried the weight of my father's fate on their shoulders. Debt? I repeated, a bitter taste rising like bile in my throat. It lingered there, reminiscent of the financial troubles Benny had just unveiled. What do you mean? Not just money, they said, their eyes hardening with a painful resolve. You can't run from your family's past. That's something that binds you until you confront it. If you don't help him, You could lose me at 2. They're watching. I flinched, my heart knotting in my chest. They'll take her away, I whispered, forcing the words through clenched teeth. Anxiety washed over me, cold and unrelenting. Who was I now if I couldn't even guarantee MIA's safety? Don't let fear dictate your choices, the stranger urged, their voice rising to a powerful plea. The past is here to teach you, not haunt you. You have the chance to change everything. Mia tugged at my sleeve again, sensing the upheaval twisting our lives. Auntie, who is he? I don't understand. I turned to her, the love I felt for this innocent child warping into a protective coconut shield that demanded I make a choice. But every heartbeat echoed with uncertainty, a countdown to decisions that could either fracture us further or bind us together. Please, my voice cracked, flooded with emotional weight as I fought to keep myself together. Just give me one reason to believe you. The stranger reached into their pocket, pulling out an old photograph. As they extended it toward me, I caught a glimpse of an unfamiliar yet hauntingly familiar face, surrounded by laughter and warmth. Suddenly, memories tore through the walls I had constructed around my heart, memories of a father I hardly knew but had dreamed of rekindling in the silent corners of my mind. That one image felt like a match struck against the dark, igniting something deep within, illuminating the once-forgotten hope that maybe, just maybe, I had a chance to reclaim what was lost. But with that hope came the uncertainty of what depths I'd have to plunge into to save him, to save us. Are you ready to face your future, Nina? The stranger asked, their gaze unwavering yet searching. Or are you willing to risk everyone's safety just to keep the past buried? The question hung heavy in the air, an anchor pulling me toward an answer that could unravel everything I thought I knew. I opened my mouth to respond, the answer dancing on the tip of my tongue, but just then, the door swung open once again. A rush of cold air enveloped us, and I felt the moment shatter. 2 figures entered, law enforcement, unmistakably serious, eyes scanning the room with an unspoken urgency. My breath hitched, the dread surging inside me like an oncoming wave determined to pull me under yet again. I am sorry, Nina, Benny whispered, fear flashing in his eyes. They're here for you. The world around me cracked, every choice fracturing under the weight of 2 separate realities. The piece of our ice cream sanctuary morphed into a battlefield, and the future I had been grasping at lingered just out of reach. As the figures in uniforms advanced, a sense of dread enveloped me, chilling me to the bone. My heart raced, pounding against my chest like a trapped bird desperate for escape. I turned to the stranger, my last hope, and in that fleeting moment, I saw not just a guide, but a confidant, someone who understood this unbearable tension better than I did. What do? I pleaded, my mind racing through options that flitted away like smoke. Trust yourself, Nina. Protect your family, they insisted, their voice steady amid the chaos. But I wasn't sure I could protect anyone, not with the shadows of my past creeping closer, threatening to swallow us whole. What's happening? I asked as the officers approached. My body felt like lead, frozen in a panic that robbed me of my courage. Nina Collins? One officer asked, his tone clipped and formal. I hated how authoritative it sounded when he spoke my name, as if it was not just a name but a mark of my entire history, the good, the bad, and everything in between. Yes? We need to speak with you. It's about your late father, he said, the words barbed, each word pulling at my tightly bound defenses. A gasp escaped from my lips like a struggle against the wind. I felt MIA's small hand squeeze mine tighter, her warmth a beacon amid a storm threatening to engulf us. Hey, let's take a step back, Benny interjected, stepping between me and the officers, his body tense. Can't you see she's with family? This is not the time. Sir, we have a job to do, the second officer replied, annoyance creeping into his voice. And this concerns her. Is this about the dead? I asked abruptly, the words spilling out unbidden. Is this about what happened years ago? There are matters we need to resolve, Nina. They involve you and your father's case. My thoughts spiraled at the mention of my father. Did I dare unravel that knotted thread with a simple question? My mind flickered back to the photograph the stranger had shown, meth bombshell of hope juxtaposed with the potential danger that lay ahead. The first officer continued, we believe he's alive, and there are people looking for you because of that. What? I choked out, dread pooling heavy in my stomach. Why? What do they want from me? Just like your father, you hold crucial information, he said firmly, and the weight of those words crushed my spirit. And they're willing to do anything to get it. In a heartbeat, the stranger shifted closer, igniting a spark of courage within me. We can protect you, but you need to come with us. It's not safe to stay here, they urged, their eyes searching mine. MIA's grip was like a vice, but her soothing gaze contested the fear. She was scared too, but she remained beside me, unwavering in her innocence. I had to protect her. That was the only truth I could cling to. Can you trust us? The stranger asked gently, channeling all their urgency into that one poignant question. I took a shuddering breath, fluctuating between disbelief and a growing resolve. What if I don't? What if I refuse? The first officer's expression darkened, disappointment and my hesitation clear as day. You may not have a choice, enough. Benny shouted, his frustration bubbling to the surface. This isn't how you handle things. You are scaring her. The tension in the room escalated, and without knowing it, I had slipped into a world teetering on the edge of chaos. While the officers tried to clutch the spiral, I felt the stranger moving closer, their body blocking the officers from advancing. Listen to me, Nina, the stranger whispered, their breath warm against my skin. Take a leap of faith. You have the power to change this you, not them. I turned to them, sparks of hope igniting in my chest, battling against the fear gnawing at my resolve. If I go with you, will that keep me as safe? Their eyes softened, a silent promise lingered between us. They'll do everything in my power to protect you both. Mia, stay close to me, I whispered, pulling her against my side. Then I faced the officers with newfound determination. If you want to speak with me, it will be away from here. Do not make this difficult, the first officer warned, stepping forward. You are a witness, and we need your compliance. Witness of what? My voice trembled but held a thread of steel. You haven't mentioned anything to convince me that I should trust you, and I have far more to lose by staying here than I do by disappearing. The second officer glanced at his partner, then back at me, eyes narrowed but gauging my resolve. Suddenly, the very air in the room changed a shift I couldn't pinpoint, but could feel vibrating through every bone in my body. A low sound growled from outside, and within moments, a motorcycle roared to life, its engine cutting through our tension. My stomach dropped. What is that? I demanded, panicking slightly. The stranger's expression morphed into one of alarm. They're here, they said urgently. We need to move now. Everything unraveled in that instant, a thread snapping, leaving me dangling between the decision to leave everything behind or confront the terrifying mystery. I looked down at Mia, her frightened eyes meeting mine. My heart tore at the thought of leaving her to face whatever was hunting us. Run! I shouted without thinking, gripping MIA's hand tight. Suddenly, we were barreling toward the back exit, my heart racing wildly as I caught a glimpse of familiar shadows forming in the doorway. But as we made our break, I caught a glimpse of Benny watching from behind, torn between his protective instincts and the knowledge of the storm on our heels. In that single moment, I didn't know if I could indeed save us all. The world was closing in, and I was unsure if I had made the right choice at all. Would following this shadowy figure lead to salvation or ruin? Just as we burst through into the alleyway, I heard them call out after me, their voice cutting through the darkness. Nina, you can't escape what has to come. The streetlights flickered, the cool night air surrounding us like a breath of freedom, the sirens of truth drawing nearer as I slipped into the uncharted darkness ahead, with MIA's hand clutched tightly in mine. The hollow echoes of the alley surrounded us as we sprinted into the night, the frantic rhythm of our footsteps blending with the chaotic symphony of distant sirens. MIA's breaths came quick and shallow beside me, and I could feel the heat of panic radiating from her tiny frame. The alley smelled of dampness and danger, a combination that sent a shiver down my spine. Where do we go? She whimpered, her wide eyes darting to the shadows that seemed to stretch and twist at the edges of our vision. For a moment, the overwhelming urge to comfort her threatened to drag me down into despair. I had become a lighthouse in a tempest, but now my own beam flickered uncertainly. We just need to keep moving, I said, forcing courage into the words, though it felt like treading water in the deep end. We'll find somewhere safe. But the truth was, I had no idea where that safe place could be, a fact that gnawed at the edges of my mind as I glanced back down the alley. The shadowy figure from moments ago, the stranger, could have been my lifeline or my doom. I was tethered to their decision, a rope taut with uncertainty. Ahead, the alley opened into a narrow street, streetlights casting weak pools of illumination on the asphalt. I spotted a small diner across the road, its neon sign buzzing like a heartbeat echoing in the silence. There, I pointed, urgency surging through my veins. Let's go inside. Mia squeezed my hand tighter as we dashed toward the entrance, where a flickering welcome sign hung like a guardian over the threshold. However, just as we reached the door, I spotted an officer at the other end of the street, his silhouette unmistakable against the glow of the diner lights. My heart drop. He was blocking our escape route. "Don't stop. Go in," I urged, propelling Mia forward as I shoved open the glass door. The cool air inside the diner hit us like a wave, arresting the chaos outside, if only for a moment. The diner was nearly empty, a few hushed conversations filling the space, while stale coffee mingled with the scent of greasy fries. A waitress glanced up, her expression a mix of curiosity and concern. I could feel the weight of every eye on us as we stumbled inside, and I instantly wanted to sink into the shadows, to blend away and hide from our pursuers. "Help," I called, my voice shaky yet strong as I approached the counter, desperation painting my features. "We need help. They're coming for us." The waitress dropped her notepad, eyes going wide, while the cook paused mid-chop, a knife hovering uncertainly in the air. "What did you say?" she asked, edging closer, her compassion igniting a tiny flicker of hope within me. Before I could respond, I felt Mia tugging at my sleeve, her voice barely a whisper. "Nina, what if they find us? Just give me a moment," I promised, turning back to the waitress. "Please, we were being chased. We think they're looking for us. We need a place to hide. Why don't you sit down?" The waitress suggested, her voice somehow soothing in an otherwise overwhelming revelation. "They'll get you some water. We'll figure this out." Just then, the door swung open. I turned to see the first officer step inside, his eyes scanning the diner, piercing through the gloom as if seeking us specifically. Panic gripped my chest, and I instinctively stepped back, trying to shield Mia behind me. "Stay low," I hissed, crouching to pull her beneath the counter. The world felt dark and heavy, the weight of our anxiety nearly suffocating. I could hear the muted voices of patrons rising and falling like waves against the shore. "What do you want?" the waitress asked, her voice firm as she stood her ground against authority even while trembling within. "Just need to ask some questions," the officer replied, his tone dismissive as he approached the counter. "You seen two girls running from here? One's got dark hair." My heart raced as I peered around the edge of the counter, watching as he leaned against the counter, oblivious to how close he was to discovering us. Suddenly, the cook, a sturdy man with salt and pepper hair, stepped forward, crossing his arms defiantly. "They're just kids. You have no reason to come in here and bully them. You ought to respect." The officer's eyes narrowed, disbelief curling his lip. "These kids are involved in something far graver than you think. You don't know what they're entangled in, grave?" I struggled to breathe, the weight of unresolved pasts crashing down on me as fear bit harder. My father's secrets were unfolding in ways I never imagined they could. Whatever legacy he left, it was now mine to wrestle with, and I had no guidance, no path forward. The waitress' determination pulsed through the air. "Maybe you ought to go. You've got nothing here," she asserted, her voice unwavering against the barrage of his righteous authority. "Funny," the officer sneered, glancing down the street, as if sensing my mounting dread. "You think I'll just leave? You don't know what's out there." My stomach churned as dread pulled within me, echoing the uncertainty of what lay ahead. Just when I thought I had drawn a line in the sand, a loud clang echoed through the diner dishes crashing to the ground. Pandemonium erupted. Out of nowhere, a child burst through the door, not much older than Mia, scruffy hair tousled as if they'd just dashed from a dream. "Mom!" they cried out, eyes glistening with urgency as they ran toward the waitress. The officer's attention turned deviation enough for me to catch my breath. "You have to help them," the child implored, their innocence shining against the backdrop of our desperate situation, unwittingly pulling a thread of light into the shadows enveloping us. The waitress knelt, cradling the child in her arms. "It's okay, sweetheart," she soothed, shooting a look at the officer, a challenge entwined in her fierce gaze. As my heart soared with the possibility of solidarity against the darkness, I turned to Mia. "We're not alone," I whispered, though doubt tugged at the corners of my heart. Just then, the officer turned back. "You're in trouble," he warned, taking a step toward us. "That we need cover," I hissed, grabbing Mia's hand. But before I could pull her back, a resonating crash boomed from the street outside, shaking the diner on its foundations. A motorcycle revved with ferocity, echoing our terror. "Run!" I screamed, adrenaline surging as I propelled Mia forward, just as the diner's door burst open again. Get down, the officer shouted, but my heart sank deeper as I turned. Through the doorway rode in the figure of the stranger, helmet shining under the flickering lights, pulling the bike into the diner, resolve etched into their features. This way, they yelled. Fate was calling me down a path fraught with uncertainty, yet, facing the unknown with Mia beside me, I felt the pulse of hope fighting to break free from our shared darkness as we rushed toward the only hand extended toward us in a broken world. In that chaotic moment, I realized the truth. The real fight was not just against those hunting us, but within our hearts, where hope flickered weaker than hate yet shone all the brighter for it. But as I clutched Mia's hand tight, ready to embrace whatever followed, an unseen danger hung in the air, foreshadowing the unraveling of truths I still couldn't see, truths that would change everything I thought I was protecting. I stood at the edge of uncertainty, the weight of apprehension pressing down with every unstable breath I took. The turbulent ride on the motorcycle felt like a wild flight into the unknown, one I had never anticipated. My heart raced beside Mia's as the stranger weaved through the labyrinthine alleys, shadows looming like dark fingers trailing our every move. I stole a glance at her small face, the innocence radiating from her shining eyes a stark contrast to the chaos that entwined us. Where are we going? Mia shouted over the roar of the engine, her voice threaded with both exhilaration and fear. I swallowed hard, knowing she deserved reassurance amidst this madness, yet the truth felt like daggers against my tongue. I didn't know where we were heading. I could only follow the flicker of hope offered by this enigmatic stranger who seemed to hold the keys to our salvation or our doom. For now, just hold on tight, I called back, trying to sound brave when I felt anything but. My fingers dug into her small waist, grounding me in the storm of emotions swirling within. We sped past dimly lit shops and indistinct figures blending into an urban canvas, memories and fears intertwining, blurring the lines of who I was supposed to be for her. Finally, the motorcycle came to a halt outside a dilapidated building, its facade crumbling like the remnants of my once stable life. The stranger dismounted, their silhouette framed against the twilight sky. This is our safe house, they said, voice steady yet urgent. We'll figure things out from here. I held Mia closely, my pulse echoing in my ears as uncertainty flickered. As we stepped inside, I scanned the dimly lit room, the musty smell clinging to the air a stark reminder of all that had been lost and yet to be found. I could see scattered boxes and mismatched furniture. The room felt alive with untold stories whispering in the corners, longing for connection. I turned to the stranger, ready to demand answers, no longer willing to skip around the truth. Who are you? Why are you helping us? I asked, voice shaking with the weight of fear and determination. They sighed, rubbing their temples as if contemplating how to unravel the story that entwined our destinies. My name is Sam. I knew your father, they finally said, their gaze unwavering, the gravity of their words crashing into me like a wave. Mia tugged at my sleeve, wide-eyed with curiosity and confusion. Is that true, Nina? Is he our family? The innocence in her voice sliced through the heavy air, revealing the open wound of our scattered lives. I nodded, feeling my throat constrict. I wanted to shield her from this monstrous reality, but knew I owed her the truth. Sam continued, your father is in danger. He was involved in something he couldn't escape, and now those same forces have turned their attention to you particularly because of Mia. My heart dropped, dread coiling around my chest with newfound intensity. What does that mean for us? I whispered, each word a plea for clarity. It means we need to act quickly. You cannot stay in one place for too long, Sam replied, urgency dripping from every syllable. There are things you don't know about your family, about the debts that have been hanging over you. Your father was trying to protect you, but now, it's time to confront the reality of who you both are. Mia's little hand gripped mine tighter, her trust illuminating the darkness threatening to consume me. But we're scared, she said timidly. What if we can't find him? What if he doesn't want to be found? It was a culmination of all my fears weaving into one question, one that echoed in the corners of my mind until I feared it might drown us both. You must believe, Sam replied firmly, their gaze penetrating beyond mere words. Belief is what carries us through when hope wanes. Your father was a good man, Nina. It's not just about finding him. It's about understanding the legacy he left and the strength that lies within you both. Tears pricked at the corners of my eyes, frustration and vulnerability twisting into one as I thought of the fractured pieces of my life. You don't know what it's been like. The years of pain and loss, of fighting this battle alone, I said, my voice breaking. How can I trust you? How can I trust that you won't lead us into deeper chaos? I understand your hesitation, Sam said, voice softening as they stepped closer, bridging the gap of uncertainty. But you must know that the choices laid before you are about family, loyalty, and the power that comes from confronting the darkness in your past. You're not alone anymore. I looked down at Mia, who searched my eyes for affirmation, and I felt the tide shifting within me. Through the cracks of fear, I saw her reflection, the undeniable strength encapsulated in her small frame, proof that even within the chaos, love could bloom. We'll find him, I decided, resolve sharpening in my gut. We'll face the truth together, no matter how painful. Sam nodded, a flicker of pride lighting up their features as if they'd been waiting for this moment all along. Good. There isn't much time, they insisted. We need to gather information, connect the dots. We must act fast. Our journey had begun, and as I grasped Mia's hand tighter, I didn't know what lay ahead, but I felt a flicker of belief rising within, a kind of hope forged from heartache, a bond that couldn't be severed. Together, maybe we could piece together the fragments of our family's legacy in a way that turns survived burdens into stories of healing. As if summoned by the intensity of my clarity, the room crackled with an unseen energy, revealing a path, a compass guiding us toward where we needed to go. Little did I know that the road ahead would lead me deeper into my past, unveiling secrets long buried. I took a breath, drawing courage from the sincerity in Mia's gaze, a reminder that love always conquers fear, even when the road ahead feels perilous. And in that moment, all I could do was allow myself to lean into the swirl of uncertainty, knowing we would rise up from the ashes of our chaotic lives, together, one heartbeat at a time. Reinvented, reborn, and empowered by the bond that anchored us in our darkest hours. As the night stretched its arms around us, I realized the greatest fight would not just be about escaping danger, but ultimately about reclaiming our story, one that was waiting to be rewritten by love, resilience, and unwavering belief that we could face whatever awaited us head-on. And in that vow to fight for not just survival, but understanding, we stepped into the unknown together, hearts united against whatever storm lay ahead. Love was our sword, and hope, our shield, ready to carve a path out of the shadows. The engine of our lives roared back to life, and together, we would surge forward, undaunted by the challenges on the horizon.